California has just passed one of the biggest housing laws in decades. Supporters say it'll solve the housing crisis. Critics say it could permanently change neighborhoods, property values, traffic, and even the way cities control growth. Beginning this year, a single train station could determine what gets built next door to your home. So what exactly changed? More importantly, could this law help your property or hurt it? In today's video, California just changed housing forever. 10 ways SB 79 could impact your homeownership. We're breaking down the most important ways this sweeping policy could reshape communities, influence property values, alter zoning rules, and open the door to both new opportunities and unexpected challenges. We'll walk through what SB 79 actually does, cut through the noise, and highlight who stands to gain and who might need to prepare. Some of these changes are already taking effect, while others could unfold over the coming years. And the final impact on our list? It's something every California homeowner needs to understand. So settle in, stay with us until the end, and let's unpack what this means for you. If you value clear, fact-driven insights on California housing, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to California Housing Market, and let's get started. Number 10. Local governments are losing some control over zoning. This is one of the most debated changes in SB 79. For decades, cities controlled what could be built, building height, density, parking, zoning, all of it. That's how neighborhoods kept their character. But now that control is shifting. SB 79 gives the state more authority over areas near major transit. And that could directly affect you. Picture this: you've lived in your quiet neighborhood for 20 years. Single-family homes, calm streets, nothing too dense. Your city zoning rules have always protected that. Then suddenly, things change. A developer finds a property near a transit stop and proposes a multi-unit building, something your city might have rejected before. Under SB 79, certain local rules can't block it if they conflict with state housing standards. So let me ask you, should the state be able to override your city's zoning to fix the housing crisis? Supporters say yes. California is short millions of homes, and prices remain among the highest in the country. They argue local restrictions have slowed construction for decades, and building near transit is the fastest way to increase supply. But critics push back. They say cities understand their own infrastructure, traffic, schools, utilities, better than the state does. And removing local control could mean big changes without local input. Here's the reality. Cities aren't losing all control. But in transit zones, the state now has more influence than ever before. And depending on where you live, that could reshape your neighborhood faster than you expect. Number 9. More high-rise housing could rise near transit. This is one of the changes you'll likely notice first, not in policy documents, but right outside your front door. One of SB 79's biggest goals is to encourage what's known as transit-oriented development, or TOD. It's a planning strategy that concentrates housing within walking distance of major public transportation, including train stations, subway stations, light rail stops, and busy bus corridors. The idea is simple. If more people live close to transit, they can drive less, reduce traffic congestion, and make better use of existing transportation infrastructure. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's where things start to get interesting. Picture a neighborhood today. You see single-family homes, front yards, and maybe a few small businesses. Fast forward a few years, and that same area could look very different. Instead of one house on a lot, you might see a modern 5 to 8-story apartment building with ground-floor retail, hundreds of new residents, and a much busier streetscape. That's exactly the kind of increased density SB 79 is designed to make easier in qualifying transit areas. California officials argue this approach is necessary because the state continues to face a severe housing shortage while many transit systems remain underused. Building more homes near transit, they say, helps address both challenges at the same time. But not everyone is convinced. Some homeowners worry that taller buildings could change neighborhood character, increase traffic on local streets, reduce privacy, and put added pressure on schools and public services. Others welcome the possibility of more shops, restaurants, improved transit use, and a larger supply of homes. So, if building taller apartments near transit eventually helps ease California's housing shortage, is that a fair trade-off for changing the look and feel of established neighborhoods? Because as you'll see next, the changes don't stop with taller buildings. They could even affect something drivers care about every single day. Number 8. Parking requirements could shrink. This is the part of SB 79 that might not grab headlines, but it could have a surprisingly big impact on your daily life. For decades, many California cities required developers to build a minimum number of parking spaces for every new housing project. On the surface, that sounds like common sense. After all, more homes usually mean more cars. But here's the problem. Parking isn't cheap. Building structured parking garages or underground parking can cost anywhere from $50,000 to well over $100,000 per parking space, depending on the location and design. Those costs don't just disappear. They're often passed on to homebuyers and renters through higher housing prices. SB 79 makes it easier for qualifying developments near major transit to move forward with fewer parking spaces based on the idea that people living close to trains, subways, light rail, and frequent bus routes may rely less on personal vehicles. Supporters say this is a smart move. If developers spend less money on parking, they can build more housing units on the same piece of land. More homes could improve supply and, over time, help ease California's housing shortage. But here's where the debate heats up. What happens if many of those new residents still own cars? Instead of parking in a garage, they may end up competing with existing homeowners for already limited street parking. That could make finding a parking spot much harder, especially in neighborhoods where curb space is already scarce. So let me ask you this. Would you accept less parking if it meant more affordable housing in your community? Or do you think reducing parking requirements simply shifts the problem from developers onto residents? It's a difficult balancing act, and California is betting that better transit can offset fewer parking spaces. Whether that works in practice is something homeowners and renters will be watching closely in the years ahead. And as you'll see next, the changes extend beyond parking. They could also transform the very look and feel of entire neighborhoods. Number 7. Neighborhoods could look very different. Close your eyes and picture a typical suburban street in California today. You see single-family homes with driveways, green lawns, mature trees, and quiet residential roads. Maybe there's a neighborhood park just around the corner, and a small shopping center a few minutes away. Now imagine revisiting that same street 10 years from now. Instead of mostly detached homes, you begin to see mixed-use buildings with apartments on the upper floors and coffee shops, restaurants, grocery stores, or small retail spaces on the ground level. More people are walking to nearby transit, sidewalks are busier, and the neighborhood has a more urban feel than it once did. That's the long-term vision behind SB 79 in many transit-oriented areas. Now, it's important to point out that this transformation won't happen overnight. Redevelopment typically occurs one property at a time. A vacant lot here, an aging shopping center there, an older apartment building gets replaced. Over several years, or even decades, the entire character of a neighborhood can gradually evolve. Supporters believe this kind of growth creates more vibrant, walkable communities where people can live, work, shop, and commute without depending on a car for every trip. They argue that's exactly what California needs, as its population and housing demand continue to grow. Others aren't so sure. Some homeowners worry they'll slowly watch familiar neighborhoods become denser and busier, with more traffic, less privacy, and fewer of the suburban qualities that attracted them in the first place. So what do you think? If your neighborhood gained more cafes, local businesses, and new housing, but also became noticeably denser, would you see that as progress or as losing the community you fell in love with? Because next, we'll look at one change that could directly affect your home's value. And the answer might surprise you. Number 6. More housing could mean more competition. If California suddenly built hundreds of thousands of new homes, what do you think would happen to home prices? Would they finally start coming down? Or would prices keep climbing anyway? That's exactly the debate surrounding SB 79. Supporters say the math is simple. California has spent years building fewer homes than it needs. The state continues to face a housing shortage estimated in the millions of units, while competition for available homes remains intense. Their argument is that when you increase housing supply, buyers and renters have more options. More choices mean fewer bidding wars, less competition for the same property, and eventually slower price growth, or even lower prices in some markets. It sounds logical, but here's where the conversation gets more interesting. Critics say not so fast. Building a new apartment community isn't like flipping a light switch. Developers still need financing, permits, labor, materials, and time. Even under friendlier zoning rules, many projects won't be completed for several years. And there's another factor. California remains one of the world's largest economies. People continue moving to areas with strong job markets, major universities, and expanding industries. If demand keeps growing as fast as new housing is added, prices may not fall nearly as much as some people expect. So who's right? The truth is, both sides make valid points. Most housing economists agree that increasing supply helps reduce long-term pressure on housing costs. The real question isn't whether more homes help, it's whether California can build enough homes quickly enough to make a noticeable difference. Now I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you think SB 79 will finally create enough housing to make homes more affordable? Or do you believe demand will continue to outpace construction, keeping prices high for years to come? Keep that answer in mind, because our next point reveals something many homeowners haven't considered. This law could actually make some properties significantly more valuable. If you find this video valuable at this point, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Share the video to as many people as we continue. Number 5. Some existing homeowners could actually benefit. This is one of the most overlooked parts of the conversation. Imagine you own a modest 3-bedroom house that's been in your family for decades. It's comfortable, nothing flashy, and it's located just a short walk from a major train station or light rail stop. A few years ago, your property might have been worth only what another family was willing to pay for a single-family home. But under SB 79, that same piece of land could become attractive to a developer looking to build dozens of housing units. Suddenly, they're not just buying your house, they're buying the potential of the land beneath it. That changes everything. In some parts of California, redevelopment opportunities have already led developers to pay significant premiums for strategically located properties. If multiple homes can be assembled into a larger development site, the combined land value may rise well above what those homes would have sold for individually. Now, that doesn't mean every homeowner near transit is about to receive a $1 million offer. Far from it. Property values still depend on location, market conditions, local demand, project feasibility, and many other factors. But for some owners, SB 79 could create opportunities that simply didn't exist before. Here's something to think about. If a developer knocked on your door tomorrow and offered well above market value for your home because they wanted to build apartments, would you sell? Or would you stay, even if everyone around you eventually did? That's a decision many Californians may face over the next decade. And that's why this law is so fascinating. The very same policy that worries some homeowners could become a financial windfall for others. But before you assume everyone wins, our next point looks at the other side of the coin. Why some homeowners fear these same changes could put pressure on their property's value instead. Number 4. Other homeowners worry about property values. While some homeowners could see their land become more valuable, others are asking a very different question. What if all this new development hurts my home's value instead? It's a fair concern, and one that's being debated across California right now. Imagine you've spent years maintaining your home. You've invested in renovations, landscaping, and improvements because you believed your quiet neighborhood would stay much the same. Then a new 5- or 6-story apartment building goes up just down the street. Some homeowners worry that increased density could bring heavier traffic, more competition for parking, busier sidewalks, taller buildings, casting shadows over nearby homes, and a neighborhood that feels very different from the one they originally bought into. For them, it's not just about property values, it's about quality of life. On the other hand, many real estate professionals point out that proximity to new housing, retail, and transit doesn't automatically reduce home values. In fact, in some well-planned, transit-oriented communities, improved amenities, better walkability, and stronger local investment have coincided with rising property values over time. So who's right? The answer depends on one important factor: location. Every neighborhood is different. A thoughtfully designed mixed-use development near a thriving transit hub may have a very different impact than a poorly integrated project in an area with strained infrastructure. Local market conditions, school quality, demand, public investment, and the scale of redevelopment all influence how property values respond. That's why it's impossible to make a blanket claim that SB 79 will either raise or lower home prices across California. So let me ask you this. If a larger apartment building were proposed just a few houses away from yours, would you see it as an improvement that brings new life to the community, or as a change that could diminish the neighborhood you've always enjoyed? Because coming up next, we'll shift our focus from homeowners to another group that stands to gain significantly from SB 79, developers. And what they're planning could shape California's housing market for decades. Number 3. Developers could gain new opportunities. Why do you think so many empty lots, aging strip malls, and underused properties in California have remained untouched for years? Is it because developers weren't interested? Not always. In many cases, the numbers simply didn't work. Imagine you're a developer. You spend millions of dollars buying land, paying architects, engineers, contractors, permit fees, financing costs, and construction workers. If local zoning only allows a small number of housing units, the project may never generate enough revenue to justify the investment. So the project never gets built. That's where SB 79 could change the equation. By allowing greater housing density in qualifying transit areas, developers may be able to build more homes on the same parcel of land. Instead of constructing 20 units, a project might accommodate 40, 60, or even more, depending on the site and applicable regulations. Those additional homes can significantly improve the financial viability of a project. In other words, developments that once sat on the drawing board because they weren't economically feasible may now have a better chance of moving forward. And that's exactly what supporters of SB 79 are hoping for. California has faced a housing shortage for years, with state housing officials estimating the need for millions of additional homes to better match demand. Their argument is simple. If more projects make financial sense, more homes get built. And if more homes are built, the housing shortage can gradually begin to shrink. But here's something worth thinking about. If developers suddenly have more profitable opportunities, who ultimately benefits the most? The developers, future homebuyers, or California as a whole? The answer could be all three, or it could depend entirely on how these projects are planned and where they're built. One thing is certain, SB 79 doesn't just change what developers can build, it changes what they're finally willing to build. Number 2. Homebuyers could eventually have more choices. Now we've reached one of the biggest promises behind SB 79, and if you've been trying to buy a home in California, this one is especially important. How many times have you found the perfect home online, only to discover it's already under contract or the price is far beyond your budget? That's been the reality for countless Californians. For years, experts have argued that California simply hasn't built enough housing to keep up with demand. As the population grew and job centers expanded, new housing construction often lagged behind, leaving buyers competing for a limited number of homes. SB 79 is designed to change that. By making it easier to build housing near major transit, the state hopes developers will construct more apartments, more condominiums, more townhomes, and other types of housing that have been in short supply. The goal isn't just to build more homes, it's to give buyers more choices. And when buyers have more options, competition for each individual property may begin to ease. Instead of 20 families bidding on the same home, there could be more available properties spread across the market. Over time, that could help slow the rapid pace of home price growth. But here's the part that's easy to overlook. Don't expect this to happen overnight. Even with SB 79 in place, New developments still need to be designed, approved, financed, and built. That process can take several years. So while the law could shape California's housing market for decades, its biggest benefits, if they materialize, are likely to emerge gradually rather than immediately. So if SB 79 eventually gives buyers more housing choices, would that be enough to convince you to buy in California? Or do you think homes will remain out of reach for many families regardless of how much gets built? Because the number one change on our countdown isn't about buildings or developers. It's about the future of California itself, and why many experts believe SB 79 represents one of the most significant housing policy shifts in a generation. Number 1. California's housing future may never look the same. SB 79 isn't just another housing bill, it's a fundamental shift in how California plans for its future. For decades, the conversation centered on one question: should California build more housing? Today, that debate has evolved. The questions are now much bigger. Where should those homes be built? How dense should neighborhoods become? And perhaps the biggest question of all, who gets to decide? Should those decisions remain with local governments that know their communities best? Or should the state step in when it believes local restrictions are making California's housing crisis worse? That's the real story behind SB 79. California has struggled for years with soaring home prices, rising rents, and a housing shortage that many analysts say has been building for decades. Supporters see this law as a bold step toward creating more homes where they're needed most. Critics worry it gives too much power to the state while fundamentally changing neighborhoods that residents have spent years building their lives around. The truth is, neither side knows exactly how this will play out. Some communities may see more affordable housing opportunities. Others may experience faster redevelopment, higher land values, or significant changes in neighborhood character. The impacts are likely to vary from one city and even one block to the next. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The California of the next 10 or 20 years may not look like the California we know today. And if SB 79 succeeds in accelerating housing near transit, future generations may grow up in communities that are denser, more walkable, and more connected than ever before. So now it's your turn. Do you believe SB 79 is the solution California has been waiting for? Or do you think it's giving up too much local control in the name of solving the housing crisis? I'd really like to hear your perspective, so share your thoughts in the comments below. And there you have it. The countdown of the 10 ways SB 79 could impact your homeownership. Whether you see this law as a long overdue solution to California's housing shortage or a major shift in local control, one thing is certain. The decisions being made today could shape California's housing market for decades to come. If you found this breakdown helpful, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to California Housing Market, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest updates on California real estate, housing policy, and market trends. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video.